The next thing we're going to talk about, gentlemen, is we are going to jump into kind of the depth chart, right? What does it look like overall? Who do we see where, that kind of a thing? Is there, is there going to be designated left and right and all of these different things? There's a lot of question marks here as far as what the defensive end position is going to look like with the depth chart. Bryan, what are your thoughts? And actually, I will kick this over to Trevor. What are your thoughts on the overall depth chart that we're looking at going into fall camp? To get through the summer, all of those things. Your thoughts on the depth chart overall, just where it's at, just your thoughts, my man.
I think the depth is it's obviously in a much better spot than what it was, say, in November of last season. In terms of depth, I love the move that Cole Mullins is back in the end position. He's going to round out the depth. We'll talk more about him later in this segment. But the biggest thing that I like about this group as a whole is I love the diversity of talent. Very similar, again, I'm going to draw another analogy to the wide receiver room, but you don't want to have 6 guys that can all do the same thing. Bryan talked yesterday about Texas A&M's heralded defensive line class and how good they all were, and brought up it's like, yeah, that's great, man. They can all play like 2 positions. And so I don't really know what that does for your group. And so when you look at Notre Dame's defensive end makeup, you have players in there with different skill sets. Now, we will also talk about what they need to do to improve to become more well-rounded defensive end players. But you do have players in that room with strengths. You have a guy like Boubacar who can pin his ears back and get after the quarterback at a very high efficiency rate. You have an end in Josh Burnham, who is known a little bit more as a run stuffer. In the same vein that Boubacar is going to have to kind of round out his abilities as a run stopper, Josh Burnham's going to kind of have to round out his abilities and reach his full potential as a pass rusher. You have somebody in Bryce Young who has the size and the specs to be a future first-round NFL draft pick. He's got to kind of hone in and get his feet under him a little bit. Cole Mullins is a year removed from an injury, I believe, and he made the transition back to defensive end this offseason, but he looked really natural there, like I've talked about a lot this offseason. Then in somebody like Logan Thomas, he's another one that you pin the ears back and he can get after the quarterback in a very, very high efficiency rate. And so when I look at this depth chart, I am really pleased with the diversity of talent that it has. You don't just have a bunch of just 6'4", 280-pound guys that you're just kind of relying on setting the edge. You have diversity of athleticism, size, talent. You have guys like Junior Tuihalamaka in the room who's just kind of like your jack of all trades. We saw him get after the passer a little bit last season. We've seen him set the edge before. He's shown the ability to do that. So those are kind of my initial takeaways when I look at Notre Dame's overall depth in that room.
Bryan, what are your thoughts on the depth chart, kind of where things stand right now?
Well, obviously not having Jordan Patelho to start the season is not an ideal aspect. Here's just this is the my post-spring summer depth chart before we got word that they're going to be playing right and left. So just keep that in mind. But this just kind of gives you a sense of who all right now is healthy. And there's a lot to like there, guys. There's a lot of talent here. There's now a lot more experienced talent. And arguably you could maybe say your most talented pass rusher is your least experienced guy of the returners that played last year in Boubacar Traore. So I think there's a lot of different body types. Junior Tuihalamaka and Josh Burnham have very different body types. Junior Tuihalamaka and Boubacar Traore have very different body types. Burnham and Boubacar have very similar body types. Logan Thomas has a very unique body type to the other guys. Cole Mullins has a very unique body type to anybody else. Chris Burgess I'll be shocked if when we get the official roster, if Chris Burgess is 245, I'll be shocked if that's what his weight is. But there's a lot of different skills. Junior's more of a big physical power player, sets the edge, can win with power. Boubacar's that really twitchy, athletic kind of get after a guy. Burnham's the high motor guy that needs to start using his athleticism more. You've got Cole Mullins as a big power guy. Bryce Young is just a freaky athlete. So there's a lot of different body types here too, on top of having different skill sets. And so I think what that allows Notre Dame to do is, if they can remain healthy, is it does give them the ability to kind of play matchup football at times, meaning, hey, we've got this is a team that's real big and physical and they want to run the ball at you. And so maybe this week we see more Cole Mullins, or we see more Bryce Young and Junior on the field together. We see the Junior on first and second down a little bit more than Boubacar in this particular game, since Boubacar hasn't shown himself to be a great run defender yet. So there's all types of things that you can do. because you don't have 6 guys that do the same exact thing. And so I just think overall, Trev and Vince, I like the depth that this line has. Not a single freshman has to play this year. So you don't need Chris Burgess to play. If he helps you, it's because he earns it. And then the guy missing from this list is Jordan Patelho. You're going to get him back towards the middle end of the season and be able to add him to the depth chart with sort of fresh legs. So I think it's a good depth chart, but it's not one that right now gives me all warm and fuzzies in regard to, like, I know what they're going to do. It gets me excited when I think about what they're capable of doing, but this goes back to our earlier conversation. You start looking at it saying, like, there's a lot that I still need to learn about this group. The other thing you notice about it from an eligibility standpoint, it's a very young group. I mean, there's 9 guys on this particular list. 7 of those 9 guys have freshman or sophomore eligibility. So that certainly bodes well for the future.
And only one guy exhausts his eligibility, except
on
for Patelho.
This group. But when you add Patelho, Vince, it's 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Instead of 7 out of 9, that's still a big chunk of your depth chart. Not only has eligibility beyond this year, but has eligibility beyond 2026.
Yeah, right.
And so that's something that makes this a little bit interesting, but it's still a very young group, and that's why we have so much of the unproven nature. And then Josh Burnham spent a chunk of his freshman year playing linebacker. Junior spent a chunk of his freshman year playing linebacker. So they're still learning the position. They were still learning the position degree last year. Now we need to see them look like the veterans that they are, and that adds a little something to it.
So it's interesting that you pull up the depth chart so we can actually see where these guys are kind of slated at the moment, because I'm a visual guy. I like to look at the depth chart and, as we're talking and seeing who's where and all of those different things. What's interesting about defensive line in general, but specifically the defensive end, there are position battles going on here, right? But it's not like, left tackle. Like it's not like, okay, one guy's going to win it and then the other guy's going to be on the bench. Like this is a different scenario because they do rotate their defensive line and their defensive ends and things of that nature a lot, right? And so the battle isn't necessarily who's going to be out there on the first snap. The battle is who's going to be out there for the majority of the snaps, like when it matters. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be interesting this year, don't you think?
Yeah, I look, because there's multiple layers to this, Vince. That's
right.
Different than last year. It's not so much, okay, you're a Viper, you're an end, but it's like, okay, who's going to be right? Who's going to be left? There gets to the point in time where now you may say, hey, listen, this guy was a Viper last year, but he was way more effective when he was in the boundary to the right than he was to the left. Why? Some guys just play better left-handed or right-handed, or some guys just have more their body move. It's like, think about basketball. There's some guys who are great athletes, but when they go right, but when they ask them to go left, they're just not as good doing that. Same thing with football. There are certain guys who, we've talked about this as offensive line. There's just some linemen who just play better right-handed or play better left-handed. It's just you move a guy from left guard to right guard, and it looks like you forgot how to play football. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And so I think that factors into who's going to play where. You say, okay, well, right now, like I honestly, if I were y'all, I would not put any stock into who's where on this depth chart right here. This is just meant to show you who's coming back, because it's going to look a lot different now that it's right left, because you may right now at end, that's more of the big ends, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's where they're going to play. You may see Logan Thomas and Cole Mullins playing right end. We don't know how that's going to look. There's going to be things that go into studying your opponents. What's the percentage of a team that plays on one hash compared to another? Is there anything like that from an analytic standpoint that might factor into those type of things? 60% of the snaps year after year are with the offense, either center of the field or on the right hash, like just something like that. And I'm sure I would hope that their studies going like that. They're going to factor in, okay, then maybe you want your best pass rusher playing more to the right or the left based on that. So you could see right now we've got Junior, Boubacar, Logan Thomas there because they were Vipers, but it may be where Junior Tuihalamaka is playing left, Josh Burnham's playing left, Boubacar's playing right, Bryce Young's playing right, Logan Thomas is playing left, and Cole Mullins is playing right. I don't know what that's going to look like, but that's what this position battle in my opinion, that started in the spring and now carries into the summer and fall is going to be. It's okay. Are you going to be right or left? Are you guys going to be at the same position, or are you guys going to be opposite sides because we want you on the field together more? Those are the things going to go into it, Vince, because I do think there's a battle for who starts. And then beyond that, there's a battle for who plays more snaps, which could vary from week to week, depending on what your particular strengths are as a player. And then there's going to be a battle for who's in there in the clutch moments. Or is it such where my confidence as a defensive line coach, if I put myself in Al Washington's shoes, is, hey, guys, I have full confidence in all 4 or 5 guys we have in the rotation. So let's stay with our rotation in key moments. Who's fresh? I want to put who's fresh out there. Because like the previous series, we had a 12-play drive and we held them to a field goal, and now we're a 6-point game turned to a 3-point game. Now they've got this game-winning drive. Well, I had Burnham on the field for 8 snaps the last drive, and I had Boubacar on the field for 8 snaps last drive. They played a lot of snaps, so let's go with Bryson Jr. or Bryson Logan or whatever, because I trust all of them. It could also be where, like, no, I don't trust them, and when it's money, or not even not trusting, it's just I want these 2 on the field on money downs or money drives. That's all going to be established in the fall. And that's what the position battle is. You were rightly pointed out, Vince. It's not so much for who starts at Viper, who starts at end. Like, the days of the program are over, where it's like, I'm the starter, seat at the table, let me ran my head through a window. But, like, you start, you're the guy. You're primarily the guy. Those days are over. It's going to be a rotation of players. And that's good for the players, especially if you're trying to play 16 games. So it's not so much who starts or who doesn't. It's who's going to dominate the snaps, who's going to be in there when the game's on the line, and who do you want on the field in the fourth quarter? Because that could impact who you are too. Like, hey, I want Boubacar fresh in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
But I have data that shows me Boubacar fades after 30 snaps. I'm not saying that's true. I'm literally making this up as an example.
Right.
Boubacar fades as a pass rusher after 30 snaps. So I may not start Boubacar because I want to push back him getting to 30 to late fourth quarter as opposed to late third quarter. So all those things kind of, or Boubacar's may only be on the field 4 plays at a time because of that. And you could insert Logan Thomas or Burnham or Bryce Young, whoever. Those are part of the things that your strength program should be learning. It's part of the things that your analytics are studying. Hey, this guy's miles per hour or whatever goes down when he's been on the field more than 5 straight plays. So let's not have him on the field for 5. Those are things that are going to factor into it as well, and that's what the fall is going to tell us about this group. Yeah,
and the fascinating part to me is also, I mean, you kind of brought it up, but I just want to kind of put a bow on it. The fascinating part to me is with these quote-unquote kind of new positions, who knows who's going to start? Like, it could be all over the place, to be honest with you. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that this thing's wide open, folks. Like, they're going to get after it, and they're going to find the best way, as you kind of mentioned, the best way to utilize all the talent that they have in that room, barring some kind of a crazy injury, which, again, law of averages, they should be good to go this year. That's the hope. So this is a very intriguing group when it comes to the depth chart. So let's kind of jump into this, fellas. Let's kind of go through these guys kind of one by one. And what we'll do is we'll kind of go through them based on kind of snaps played and kind of go down that list in that regard. But let's talk about these guys. So first on the list, and I think this guy's a very intriguing guy to me because I feel like he kind of gets forgotten a little bit, and I don't really know the reason why. He was thrust into a position to make plays, and he made some plays, especially down the stretch, and that's Josh Burnham. Played over 450 snaps last year. They really leaned heavily on him after all these injuries and everything, and I think he stepped up to the plate. He progressed very, very well in the 24 season. Now it's time to take that next step.
Yeah, when you talk about a guy like Josh Burnham, Vince, you brought it up that he doesn't get a lot of attention. And I think first and foremost, it just goes back to he doesn't have I'm trying to think of how to word this. He doesn't have like that sexy presence that, a Bryce Young brings to the table, a flashy Boubacar brings to the table. He was a high school quarterback and linebacker, moves to defensive end. and he's not really talked about that much, but he's somebody that, one, he's a very high motor kid. And we talked about him a couple weeks ago in that I don't want to put him in the category of like he's just a tryhard. He has a very high ceiling and he tries hard. That's what makes him such a good player.
But he plays like one though, Trev. Like that's the thing, is he plays like a tryhard guy.
Yes.
And that's what's missing from his game right now. I know what you're trying to say, and you're trying to be nice. So I'll say it. He's too talented to play like a tryhard guy. And when we say tryhard guy in this instance, I'm being somewhat derogatory in that I love the effort, love the motor, but you're just a limited athlete. Josh Burnham's not a limited athlete. He should be playing like more of a difference maker. He's capable of playing like a difference maker. I love what he did last year, Trev. Love it. He was a very important part of this team last year. And when you look at the total snaps, Josh Burnham ranked 10th on the defense in total snaps. 10th. And he was 72 snaps behind Riley Mills. He was over 100 snaps behind Howard Cross. Yet he had more tackles for loss than Howard Cross. And only Riley Mills had more tackles for loss than Josh did last year. But it wasn't by a whole lot when you consider total number of snaps. So even though he was 10th on the defense in total snaps, he was second on the defense in tackles for loss. So the potential is there. The playmaking potential is there. I think Josh's big thing is, I don't know that Josh believes he's like, when you watch him play, does Josh strike you as a guy that plays like someone who thinks he's as talented athletically as he is? He doesn't. He plays like a guy like that, hey, I'm going to do my job, and I get excited when I do my job. But like, I want to see Josh play with a little bit more swagger. I want to see Josh play with a little bit more, dude, I'm going to kick your butt all day today. Like, it's going to be a long day for you today because I've watched the film and I've got something for you. I'm going to dominate you today. And Trev, that's what I want to see more from Josh Burnham, is because I think Josh has the tools to be a more impactful player. He was a clutch player last year. I love that about Josh. But now I want to see him raise his game to the level of, now you're more of a difference maker, where you're forcing defenses to account for you more. And that's what I think he's capable of, Trev, but he's got to take it to that next level. And that really is that's inside of Josh. Now Al Washington's got to teach him some things as far as use your hands better in pass pro. Josh has got to learn to – Josh doesn't have that same feel as far as getting around the edge that Boubacar does, or that even Junior does. Josh tries to go through people instead of knowing when to kind of dip and rip around people. Those are things that Al Washington can teach him, and I hope that that's something that they're working on. At the end of the day, this is about Josh Burnham just believing, like, you know what, dude? I am that guy. I am that type of talent, and I'm going to show everybody. Yeah, y'all talk about Boubacar and Bryce, and they're great players, but you need to talk about Boubacar, Bryce, and Burnham. That's what you need to be talking about now. It's the 3 Bs, right? That's what we're going to be now. And I'm going to be part of that because he's got the potential to be so. He needs to just let it go. He just looks like a guy that like puts a lot of pressure on himself, and it causes him to tighten up a little bit.
That's a bit of a perfectionist kind of on the field.
That's a good way of putting it. That's maybe that's that former quarterback in him, you know?
Yep.
But I just want to see the kid let it rip.
Just go.
Just go have some fun, man. You're really talented.
Right.
Now go be that guy and believe that you're that guy, and then go be that guy.
Yeah, it's the belief. And we're not saying that he doesn't believe in himself or anything like that. It just needs to show it. You know what I mean?
NH asked, does he need more fire in the belly? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I think Josh plays really hard. That's the try-hard part that Trev talked about. I think he's got a lot of fire in his belly. I think that's why he plays so hard when he's on the field. It's more about, dude, you're not that undersized, under-athletic guy that has to give me everything he's got just to give me 20 reps. It's more so you got to believe that you're a 6'4", 250-pound, long-armed, athletic playmaker. Like Josh Burnham plays like he thinks he's 6'1.5", 240 with 31-inch arms, and he's got to play with a great motor all the time to win. I want the motor, but start believing in what God gave you as well, and go dominate. I think that's what it's a lack of confidence in himself, in that, well, not even a lot of confidence. It's a lack of belief that I think from watching him, it's a lack of belief in his own ability being what I think it is. And I think a part of it is because his whole life he's playing linebacker and quarterback. This is new to him. And I don't know that he has the same confidence he does when you just like, you remember when he handed him the ball in high school, like it's just like that kid is just like, I'm going to go take this game over. Like y'all can, I'm going to play middle linebacker, I'm going to play quarterback, and I'm going to run to the ball, and I'm going to take this game over because I'm that dude. That's who Josh Burnham was in high school. I think part of it is just maybe not having the same confidence in himself as an end to do what he did as a linebacker and a quarterback. And so it's more, I think he plays hard. I think he's got a fire in his belly. I think he wants to do well, but sometimes it's wanting to do well is part of it. But the other thing is like, I'm pretty flipping good, and I'm going to go show you what I'm capable of, and I'm going to dominate you all day. I think Josh is focused on, I'm going to do my job as best as I can. Well, that's fine, but you're capable of more. You're capable of, I'm going to work this cat from Georgia all day long. That's how Junior plays. Junior has that faith in himself. And Josh has even more talent than Junior, in my opinion. It's just he needs to play with more of that swagger. Boubacar is very confident in himself and should be. I want Josh to establish that type of belief that, dude, when you're on the field, you're going to be better than the guy across from you. Go show it. Go be that guy. And that's what I'm coming from. Does that make sense, guys? Like, it's not that he doesn't try hard. It's not that he's not a hard worker or he doesn't play with emotion. And he plays with a lot of fire. I want him to play with more swagger. That's what I want to see from Josh Burnham. Because I think he's capable of being a dude.
And being a leader of that group, too.
And,
you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And a dude like,
yeah.
I got to play 35 and 44 or 40. Like, good Lord. Like, I may fake a hamstring injury or something like that in the first series because this is going to be a long freaking day. It's going to hurt my draft stock. Just let her rip, man. That's my advice to Josh. Hey, just have faith in that you are a dude. Josh Burnham, you are a dude. Have faith in yourself that you're a dude, and then just let her rip, man. Don't be so afraid to make a mistake. Get after it. Dominate. Play with that swagger you did when you were a quarterback. That's what I want to see from Josh Burnham. Can I ask you guys this question? Don't you kind of feel like Josh Burnham's the secret ingredient to this D-line, this DN position truly being great? Like, even if Boubacar is what we hope he is and Bryce Young is what we hope he is, they're still kind of young and unproven. I feel like they need that third guy, and I don't mean third in order, but just in general, the third guy into a group of difference makers. I think they need that third guy that's really a game changer to go with those two, especially with Boubacar kind of being likely limited in early season. That's what I think. So I think Josh is important. His emergence to me is ultimately the key to this group truly being elite, where there's not a drop off. Let's just say Boubacar and Bryce are everything we think they're going to be. You want Josh to kind of put himself on that level, so that way it doesn't matter who's in the game, you're going to get worked.
I think part of that for me is because of the role that he was kind of thrust into last year. I feel like more than anything for me, his benefit to that will be the leadership piece. Like, he's going to be the guy who is a little bit more of a veteran. He has been there when it matters. He produced when it mattered. Now he's going to have to, like you said, let it go, kind of, be that guy. But I think from a leadership standpoint and then from a production standpoint, if you can put those two things together, then I think that group as a whole will be like, look what Josh is doing. Like, he does that every single time out. That's who we need to be like. And then that allows the talent level of those other guys to take over as well. So I think it starts with as a leader for Josh. And then also then his play will follow that. And then everybody else's play follows that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I go back and I think about Georgia's defense from last year. A lot of heavy hitting names. You know what I mean? A lot of guys with, the Jalen Walkers of the world, Michael Williams, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, CJ Allen, Smale Munden,
Chaz Chambliss.
But my point was going to be is look, you think of a guy that doesn't get as much recognition as those guys. It is Chaz Chambliss. Like, people, in terms of like household names amongst Notre Dame fans, it's
Good point.
Bryce Young, Boubacar, like all these guys. Got Christopher Burgess coming in. But Josh Burnham kind of falls to the wayside a little bit, just like Chaz Chambliss did a little bit last year on Georgia's defense. But what did he do? He finished last season with 9.5 tackles for a loss, 41 total tackles, 6.5 sacks.
Same number as Jalen Walker for the team lead.
Exactly. And so you think about what his impact could be. I absolutely believe that could be very similar to what Josh Burnham's impact could be amongst guys with extremely high ceilings like a Boubacar, like a Bryce Young. I agree 100%.
The next guy we want to talk about is another guy that had to change positions during his Notre Dame career from linebacker to defensive end. So similar path there that we just talked about with Josh Burnham, and that's Junior Tuihalamaka. And based on the list that I'm seeing, he had the second most snaps of anybody at this position last year. He had over 430 snaps played, right behind Josh Burnham. So Junior Tuihalamaka, this is an interesting case for me. I kind of feel like, and you guys can absolutely correct me if I'm wrong, this feels a little bit like a make or break season for Junior. I realize he's towards the end of his career and all of that, but I don't know. Are people thinking of him as a starter? Are people thinking of him as a rotation player? Where does Junior slip in here into this group of defensive ends, Trevor?
I think because of the nature of the room and the makeup of the room, I don't think Junior Tuihalamaka has to go out and get 10.5 sacks for it to be considered a successful season. And that's how I look at him. I'm also somebody that's very high on Junior Tuihalamaka. What he did last season, I rave about. Didn't play in the first 2 games, a single defensive snap, ends up coming in second on the team in total pressures generated off the edge, but nobody talks about him. And I understand. I get it. But his role for me, and you guys might differ, but when I look at a guy like Junior, he needs to be the anchor of that edge group for all the reasons that we're talking about these people. We talked about, right end, left end, who can you put in crucial moments. Junior needs to be the guy that Chris Ash and Al Washington can rely on, that, hey, we're in a certain situation in this game. I know 44 is going to go out there and do the job and do what we ask of him, because he did it for the duration of the 2024 season. While guys like a Bryce Young get his feet under him in his sophomore season, while Boubacar gets back up to 110% healthy, seeing that he's still technically less than a year removed from his knee injury, while a guy like Josh Burnham, somebody who we just talked about, is kind of emerging into that, hey, I know I was kind of a role player last year. I'm that dude now. I think Junior has a role to play on this team, but I don't think it's, 10.5 sacks, 15.5 tackles for a loss for it to be considered a good season for him, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answers your question, Vince, but that's what I see for him. It's not so much the raw production numbers that he's going to put out. It's going to be the role that he plays on and off the field for the rest of the position group for me.
I'm at the point where it's do what you did last year, but be a little bit more consistent of it. That's why I don't think this is a make or break season for Junior. I thought last year was, and Junior made it. He was a guy that, like you said, Vince, started the year on the bench. Special teams guy, played a lot the first 2 games on special teams, but defensively did not play a single snap against Texas A&M or Northern Illinois. And the only reason he played in game 3 against Purdue, where he played 18 snaps, is because the other guys got hurt. And then what does he do the next 2 games? Miami of Ohio and Louisville. He has 6 total pressures, has an interception, and performs well. My thing with Junior is a guy that is going to be your motor guy. He is what Josh Burnham thinks he is. And Junior was, number 2. He was number 2 on the defense last year in total pressures with 26, twice as many as Josh Burnham. And so it's like, just keep doing what you're doing, but more consistently. And you'd see Josh, Junior have a great performance against Navy and against the option. He had a great performance against USC. He had a great performance against Georgia. And then he doesn't have a single pressure against Penn State or against Ohio State. And he struggled against Ohio State, and it's just about consistency with him. It's if Junior Tuihalamaka is just a more consistent version of who he was last year, he's a very important part of this rotation. I think they're all rotation players, but I mean it in a different way, I think, than you do, Vince. I think you're saying is like, okay, he's going to come in and give guys kind of breathers and just kind of go do your job. I don't think that's Junior. I think the beauty of this defensive end room is you have a guy that may not start for you, let's just say Junior's not starting, who had some of the biggest plays in your win over Georgia, who had huge plays on defense in the second half against USC. So I think Junior's a very important part of this. I just don't think Junior is I don't know that Junior, and he could prove me wrong and make me look real stupid, and I would enjoy watching him do so. I don't know that there's another level for Junior to take his game where like he's going to be that 10-sack guy, because I still think middle linebacker is his best position. I still wish they would have left him at middle linebacker to see what he could do. But at the same time, would he have been able to hold off Drake Bowen? That we don't know. Your roster needed him to move. I mean that more for Junior, not so much for the team. I would have liked to seen Junior play middle linebacker. I think that's past. He's already put on the weight, changed his body, all that. But I really thought the kid could play middle linebacker. I remember Vince in 2022 watching them play Boston College when he was playing middle linebacker. Like, dude, this cat can run to the ball, man.
I was super excited about Junior as a middle linebacker. Now, this is obviously pre-Bowen. This is KVA and all of that. But, man, when he came and he signed with Notre Dame, I remember it was either a show or we were talking or whatever. It's like, man, this is the mold of a middle linebacker. Like, this is what you make a little middle linebacker out of. I was excited about Junior. And I was – I don't know if upset is the right word, but like I was disappointed when they moved him over to defensive end.
And
I understood why.
I never felt they gave him a true shot to play middle linebacker.
Yeah, agreed.
That was more of my issue because of the way Al Golden plays, which I understand because he didn't really fit Al Golden's defense. He more was of a fit for I think he actually would have fit Chris Ash's defense better. But that's past. You can't
100%.
You don't reshape his body
100%.
But the point is I think that Junior had his make or break last year, and there's a reason why Junior was not playing a lot early, but he when he got his chance, he made the most of it, and now you're going to depend on him a lot this year. And so I just want him to be more consistent, where there's some games he's really good and other games where he's like, is Junior playing today? And that's what I want to see. But he's also a guy his transition to end is even less advanced than Burnham's because he moved to end later than Josh did. Because Junior was still playing a lot of middle linebacker late in the freshman year, where Josh had kind of moved by the end of by the middle of the freshman year. So I think that Junior just needs to be a more consistent version of what he was last year. If that's all he is, that's great, because that's a really good football player who, again, was second on the defense last year with 26 pressures, despite ranking – what did we say, Vince? Where was he? He was 14th on the defense in total snaps, but he was second on the defense in pressures. I mean, him and Jalen Sneed played about the same number of snaps last year, and, Junior had 10 more pressures. Now, Junior also had more pass rush opportunities because he had some first and second down pass rush opportunities that Jalen didn't have. But you're getting the point that he was a productive player in that regard last season. So, even just like pass rush snaps, Junior was 5th on the defense in pass rush snaps. He played 3 fewer pass rush snaps according to Pro Football Focus than Bryce Young did, but he had 9 more pressures. Now here's the difference: Bryce had more hits plus sacks than the quarterback. So there's that ability to be more disruptive, but I don't know that Junior has quite the closing speed to make a big jump in sacks per se. That's why I say just keep doing what you're doing. Be disruptive, be physical, be a good edge run defender. But it's the consistency part, guys. We'd see last year where Junior would just come up and just rock the tackle in the run game, and then we see plays where he'd get driven out like 5-6 yards off the ball. It's consistency with him. And I'm excited to see him kind of take his game to another level this year and be that guy, because he's a very important part to this rotation. He'll never be the star. He'll never be the guy that gets the love, except when he makes plays like against Georgia. But he's going to be a very important part to this rotation, doing some of the big plays, but also doing a lot of the dirty work.
So the next 3 guys that we're going to talk about kind of fall into the category of super talented, young, with some experience. Okay. That I just made that up. And that's the group I decided that these 3 belong in. And so we're going to go in order of how many snaps they had last year. And obviously that starts with – go ahead.
Vince, if you want to, I kind of think it wouldn't be a bad idea to talk about these 3 together.
And that's fine.
I think you're going to talk about Boubacar, Bryce, and Logan Thomas, right?
Yes, those are the three I was referring to. 100%. Yes.
I'll say this, Trev, and I'm going to set you up because I want to get your thoughts on it because I know what I want to say. But I know a lot of times I say things and you're like, man, I was scared to say that, so I want to give you that shot. But I'll say this and then kick it to you. The difference between Notre Dame being a good defensive end group and Notre Dame being elite defensive end group is what happens with this group of Boubacar Traore, Bryce Young, and Logan Thomas. How well this group takes that jump is going to determine whether this is a pretty good edge room, which I think it will be. And that's what Burnham and Junior and even what those guys did last year gives you, or these cats are game changers. It's this group.
Couldn't agree more. We're talking about the three players that have the highest ceiling in this room. I think we can all agree on that.
Maybe on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, on the defense. I mean, you can, other than Leonard Moore, maybe Kingston and Drake. I mean, like this as far as ceiling, like the whole defense of the returners.
And I know some people are really quick to jump the gun and a lot of number projections get thrown out there. I don't need Bryce Young to play like 2027 Bryce Young or 2026 Bryce Young.
Look at Trevor thinking Bryce Young's going to be here as a senior.
Yeah, I corrected myself. It's wishful thinking. Him and him and CJ Carr, and they'll all be here in 2027.
Yeah.
But I want those three guys to take the right steps, to take the steps in the right direction to becoming those elite talents that they project to be. Growth is going to be the name of the game for Bryce Young, Boubacar Traore, and Logan Thomas. It's weird to think that Bryce Young now has, significantly more snaps played than what Boubacar does. I think it would have been, I know it would have been a different story given, Boubacar's injury last season, because he was on trajectory to be one of the leaders in the end room in snaps played. But all three need to take steps in the right direction, and it'll look a little bit different for each player. For Boubacar, when he comes back, it's going to be getting back up to speed. Everybody kind of recovers from knee injuries a little bit differently. We saw that with Mitchell Evans last season. A lot of times people are, kind of back to true form 2 years removed from that injury than they are a year removed. So I'm going to be evaluating Boubacar more on, hey, like, what does your first step look like? Are you still that twitchy athlete? I expect it to be, because ACL injuries, knee injuries aren't what they used to be back in like the 2010s, like early 2010s. That used to be. I remember when Adrian Peterson tore his ACL and he came back in 11 months, be like, dude, he's Superman. And Mitchell Evans, the tight end at Notre Dame, came back in 9.5 months and started against Texas A&M.
Yeah. And did not look like the same player.
Did not, but it's a different type of injury. And so that's where I'll be evaluating Boubacar. For Bryce Young, it's, hey, take just that natural progression with how talented he is, that natural jump from freshman to sophomore year. He's going to look like a much different player than what he did last season. We saw flashes. His sack against Indiana was spectacular. It's plays like that where you look at him and say, all right, how can you block number 30 on a consistent basis? Part of that has to be he needs to play more at a consistent level for that to happen. Now, I think maturation is going to help that out a lot. Logan Thomas is the one where I'm interested to see where he fits in. He is out of the three, the one that I'm having the hardest time confidently saying, like, this is what that next step in the natural progression looks like, because the sample size with him last year was so small. And so that's where I have a little bit of trouble. But besides the point, fact of the matter is all three of these guys need to take that next step forward, because if they do, to Brian's point at the start of this segment, they hold the key to this being an elite group in 2025.
I think with Boubacar, it's about health, because, guys, we've talked a lot about this. I'll just quickly kind of give you the numbers again. But when you look at Boubacar last year, guys, he was starting to look like that guy that we thought he could be last season. And I've talked about this. I'll give you the numbers again. Last year, Boubacar played 62 pass rush snaps in the first 4 games. He only played 3 against Louisville before he got hurt. So he played 65 pass rush snaps, and he had 9 pressures and 5 hits plus sacks on the quarterback. If he would have played at that same rate and had the same number of pass rush snaps that Abdul Carter had last season, he would have had 48 pressures. Now, Abdul Carter had 66, right? So, I mean, it's not saying he's as good as Abdul Carter, but like that's the disruption rate. But here's the other side of it. If you look at his so more consistently disruptive from Abdul Carter, but here's the interesting thing. He had 5 hits. This is according to Pro Football Focus, 5 hits plus sacks in the quarterback. If you give him, again, the same number of pass rush snaps that Abdul Carter had, he would have had 27 hits plus sacks in the quarterback. Abdul had 23. So you're talking about a level of production that was going to be very, very good for Notre Dame, like elite good for Notre Dame. And then he got hurt. And, you know, he still, despite only playing basically 4 games, he had 4 sacks or 3 sacks, which was 4th in the team. If he would have played the whole season healthy at the rate he was putting up sacks, he'd had 12 sacks last year. So for Boubacar, it's get back to where you were minimum. Now, I don't think that's going to be against Miami. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm looking at Boubacar more of once you get into October, that's what I'm hoping to really see that version of Boubacar again, just because of the injury. The good news, Trev, you mentioned the Mitchell Evans injury. Boubacar got hurt about a month and a half to 2 months before him, so hopefully that helps him out a little bit. But the other thing for Boubacar is the pass rush is great, but for you to truly become – right now, Boubacar shows elite pass rushing potential. He's got to do a better job with being a good run defender. That's where his game needs the most improvement. He's got to do a better job of setting the edge, block destruction, gets to run. You know, can he gain a little bit more weight and just be a little bit stronger at the point of attack? That's going to be a key. For Bryce, you know, it's about learning how to just the nuances of the game. I mean, it's you know, Vince, I was thinking about this. You remember the movie Waterboy? Obviously, you remember the movie, but you know, talking about the tackling fuel, right? I was kind of thinking about this, like, I want to like tell Bryce Young that, like, hey, the quarterback's actually a punter. You know what I mean? Like go get him like he's the punter from Georgia. I don't know what that kid did to you or said about your mama, but you know, go get that kid. I joke, but Bryce has such elite tools. I mean, he's 6'7". He's going to be 270 this season. Yeah. He's twitchy. He's powerful. You know, it's about you got to be more of a playmaker, though. And he showed flashes of it last year. I still remember the edge rush he had against Indiana, where that right tackle for Indiana was a pretty good player, just was like had no chance against him. And he's got the talent to be a difference maker, guys. He's just got to, you know, the thing with Bryce is he's just still learning how to dominate. And he's another guy that I think just started to figure out last year that, hey, I'm actually a pretty good football player. And, you know, he only had, I think, what did he finish last year with? It was, we'll see, Bryce Young finished with 1.5 sacks last year. You know, Pro Football Focus had him down for 3, 2 of them in the playoffs. So you started to see that late in the year. You started to see like, oh, okay, Bryce is starting to figure it out a little bit. But there's such another level for him to get to. But I think last year, some of the struggles he had last year with long tackles, big tackles, well-coached tackles, it's going to benefit him greatly because he knows, hey, if I want to be great, I got to learn these things. And I just think he started to play with a little bit more oomph late in the year, a little bit more, hey, I can do this late in the year. And now it's about taking it to another level. I'm not someone who is going to predict that Bryce is going to become a star this year. I think my prediction is it's more next year. This year will be about showing more of the flashes. I don't think they need Bryce to be what we hope he's going to be this year. They just need him to be a older, better version of what he was last year. You know, like give me, 8.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, as part of a rotation where Boubacar's getting sacks, Burnham's getting more sacks, Junior's getting sacks. You know what I mean? Anything beyond that's gravy for Bryce. It's like, okay, now he's gone beyond what my normal, that's like just normal year 2 prediction. If he goes beyond just a normal freshman to sophomore year jump for a kid of his talent, that's when he jumps and has sort of like the Stephon Tuitt type of year 2. And that's what he's capable of, having a Stephon Tuitt type of sophomore year. He played more than Stephon did his freshman year. He's capable of that. I just don't want to put the pressure on him where I don't think they need him to be that. As long as Burnham gets better and Junior does his thing and Boubacar comes back, I don't think they need Bryce to be that stud. But if he becomes it, he's going to be good. And then with Logan Thomas, guys, I still think Logan's not quite big enough yet to be an every down player. But I think Logan is going to be the guy that we're looking at on third down, is like, that's the guy you got to worry about.
Can Logan have a year like Bryce had last year?
I think Logan can have snaps wise. No, I think Logan's going to be more that guy that on third down and in passing situations you're putting in. He'll play some first and second down, have some success, I think. But he's his role for now, until we see him kind of get bigger and stronger and show that he can hold up and not get injured again, is more of a, oh crap, it's 3rd and 5 and I got to go against number 10.
Right.
This is
kind of
not going to be fun.
This is the NASCAR package,
the pass rush
that kind of thing.
Kind of guy, yeah. And then the more he's able to play on first and second down, like for me with Logan, it's like, dude, play 16 games. But like, who was on the field on the 4th down play against Georgia at the last play of the game? Who was lining up on the edge rushing the quarterback on that play? It's Logan Thomas. So clearly they have confidence in those situations. Now he's a year older, you're stronger. That's one of the most athletic players you're going to see on Notre Dame. Pound for pound, he's one of their most explosive athletes.
That's why
he doesn't get talked a lot about. Yeah, but he's also 213 pounds.
Right.
In the spring, and he got banged up. That's the enigma that's Logan Thomas. He's got to stay healthy, and then he's got to get a little bit bigger. But even a 225-pound Logan Thomas on third down is going to be a nightmare.
Agreed.
An absolute nightmare.
I agree.
So it's the different expectations for all three of them, but just between the three of them, that's where a lot of your pass rush production is going to come from, at the defensive line position, is that trio. And they have a chance to be – they all have a chance to be really impactful players. How close do they get to their potential this season? That's why I say, if they're just all good, this will be a really good defensive end position.
Mm-hmm.
But if this unit can – let's one of them becomes a dude and the other two just become really good pass rushers, then this defensive end rotation is going to be elite, as long as Josh Burnham also takes that next jump and Junior just keeps doing what he's doing. That's where I think the potential becomes production. And then, then you throw Cole Mullins into the mix, guys, and, he's a bigger body. He gives you some size, gives some power. He was probably their most impressive defensive end in the blue gold game. Like, just setting the edge, being physical against the run, had some good pass rushes like he showed he can get after the quarterback. Remember, I had Cole Mullins as a top 150 recruit coming out of high school with the expectation he was going to become an end. Well, then they tried to move him inside. I think he put on too much weight too fast. He got some of that off, came back from the injury, and this spring, guys, remember, he had a couple really nice pass rushes in the Jersey scrimmage the week before. And the touchdown pass that CJ Carr threw, you go back and watch that highlight, Cole Mullins slows up on that play because he can't hit the quarterback. In a real game, does CJ get that throw off because of Cole Mullins' pass rush? That's a fair question to ask. So I think he's got a chance to be a guy that really helps his team, and nobody's really talking about him a whole lot. But I think he's going to be part of this rotation, especially early in the year with Patelho out and Boubacar not quite 100% just yet.
Yeah, and that's the key, because somebody is going to have to step up with Patello being out, at least the first half of the season, right? I mean, somebody's going to have to take over those snaps. It could be, like in Moneyball, it could be, all these guys kind of step up a little bit to take care of those snaps, or it could be somebody like Cole Mullins who steps up and maybe takes the bulk of those snaps. Like, he's kind of the enigma with this group, in my opinion, because he did look very good in the spring. I think he's finally matured in a on the field situation, physically, mentally. I think he's in a position where he can take that next step. And if he can, and then Patello comes back, now you've got all kinds of depth and talent and everything else. And then you throw into the mix these freshmen too, guys. I mean, is Notre Dame expecting anything on the field from these freshmen? I mean, there's talent there, but I don't know that there's a lot of guys ahead of them too.
No, I think this, Trev, I think this is a team, when you look at that depth they have, I don't know that there's a need for any of them unless there's injuries. So if any of them play, it's because that guy was too good not to play. The other thing that I think helps them too, Trevor, is because you have so many linebackers that can come down and help you rush the quarterback in nickel situations and third down situations. Preston Zinner, Kingston Villamasa, Jalen Sneed, potentially Madden Faramo. I think that also lessens some of the burden that they have for like a Dom Hulak to have to play if there's injuries. I think there's things you can do on third down where you're replacing an end with a linebacker in order to get more of your linebackers in the field. So I think that takes away some of the potential need for that position too. Now, where you could see something, guys, is if there's a need where, let's just say they don't have the beef on the edge, against the run, then maybe it's like, hey, we need to activate Chris Burgess earlier than expected because that guy looks like I was joking with a friend the other day, and he's got a kid on the team, and we were like, when you see Chris Burgess on the sideline in the spring, like at a practice, you almost want to walk to him like, hey, you got a kid out there, like, you know what I mean, like it's like, if he's at Irish Invasion watching or helping out, like, hey, which one's your son? You know what I mean? He looks like a grown man. He's massive and he's got serious look on his face. It's just you don't need him to play, but could he help you? Potentially, if there's a need arises, he could help you. But I don't think you're going to need that class to do a whole lot. Between the ends we just talked about, Patel's eventually going to come back, and because you have so many linebackers. I mean, we saw in the spring game where they were going like an odd front with like three big defensive linemen. They're just lining up Preston Zinner on the edge like he's a viper and just letting him rush the quarterback. He had like 2 sacks or 2 big pressures. He's a 6'3", 240-pound kid. Kingston Villamasa, you could like in a pinch, you could line him up in like a viper type of position on first and second down if you ever got to a real big pinch, if you needed to do that. So I think there's just more of that as the option as opposed to playing one of those freshmen.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our depth chart talk. We've got some more info coming here on the defensive end, so stay tuned. But in the meantime, make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends, and of course, jump on the boards@irishbreakdown.com for all of your intel needs. Again, big recruiting weekend, and the dominoes are falling, so you want to kind of be over there to see what's happening. And that's the only place you're going to find it is over on the premium message boards, boards.irishbreakdown.com. So make sure you jump over there. Best benefit money can buy. I'm telling you right now, you want to get over there and you want to check it out. Lots of good information over at boards.irishbreakdown.com.